Starting in September, federal public servants will be expected to return to the office 3 times a week. That's an extra day on top of the current twice-a-week hybrid model. When that was announced last year, hundreds of thousands of employees walked off their jobs, and the Treasury Board says the new change has more benefits and will create fairness.
I'm confident that they are making this decision based on data and evidence as to what's most optimum to provide good public services to the public. I'm also fairly confident that they're making the decision based on the capacity and the space that is available in the entire National Capital Region when it comes to our local community.
Well, many unions are not as confident and are not welcoming this change. Stéphanie Montreuil is the head of public affairs for the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, and she joins me now. Stephanie, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
You said in a statement, your union, that you were not consulted on this. You're not happy about this. Why is this such an issue?
Yeah, I think we absolutely were not consulted. I should start by saying that. We had been told by this government that we would be consulted on such issues. That did not happen. The rollout also happened in the exact same way that it did the first time. As you will recall, when the initial direction was released in the fall of 2022, it was leaked to the media, and then we got the details again without consultation. So this is just more of the same.
Why is 3 days a week unacceptable? I understand your frustration on not being consulted. Yep. You would want to have that conversation. But why is 3 days a week such a problem?
Well, we saw Mr. Naqvi say that he was fairly confident that this was an evidence-based decision. We did ask for that evidence. We were not provided it. So we don't believe that there's any actual evidence that exists to warrant such a decision. If there is, again, it wasn't communicated to us before. We weren't asked what unintended consequences might occur with a return to the office to an extra day a week. So this is very problematic.
This is a management right, though, right? You have to be at work. This is because I remember this when Chris Aylward and Mona Fortier were appearing on the show in the Public Service Alliance strike. The government wouldn't give on this because this is a management right and they wanted to uphold it, and they're just exercising it now.
It absolutely is. The problem is that, as you know, in the budget, which was published just a couple of weeks ago, it was announced that the federal government would be divesting 50% of its buildings. And we are already hearing from PIPS members that they have a hard time finding a desk, that sometimes they want to collaborate with coworkers, but there are no meeting rooms, or of folks showing up and the workspaces haven't been cleaned from the night before. So these conditions are definitely subpar. And when you pair that with the fact that we're going to have 50% less spaces to do the work in, I'm not sure how the government expects these very dedicated public servants to do the work that they're very passionate about for Canadians under these conditions.
I wonder, though, are there challenges with people staying remote all the time? How do young employees get identified if you're not there for the side meetings and the conversations, with colleagues or with managers, where you can be identified for having the soft skills that don't necessarily just show up in the performance of a task? Is there resentment, amongst the workforce of the people who have had to go in with some regularity versus the people who get to stay home with increasing frequency? This is a thing you see in some workforces. Is that not there as well in the public service?
I can't speak on behalf of our members specifically on those issues, but I will tell you that the government does say it has a workforce problem. It has a hard time attracting and retaining young folks, and by demonstrating a relationship to their workers where they promise to be consultative, but then they turn around and aren't acting in that way, I would say that's probably a bigger hurdle to attracting and retaining.
But is there really a recruitment and retention challenge in the public service? Because the size of it has grown, and I'm not saying that to criticize it. If it's necessary, it's necessary, but it seems like the public service has been able to grow and expand. It is a larger workforce than when this government was elected 9 years ago.
To match the growth of the Canadian population. So the number one goal of public servants is to deliver services to Canadians. So if our population is growing, then the public service will.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying it shouldn't, but I mean, it speaks to if they are able to grow at such a size and scale, that means they are able to attract and recruit people. And you might have some people in the private sector watching this saying, what's the big deal about 3 days a week in the office? Because some people, small business owners or whatever, have had to go in. They're in there all the time, and a lot of private sector workers are in the office all the time. I mean, what do you say to people who look at this and say, oh, this is civil servants not wanting to show up?
Well, again, our public servants have been delivering frontline service through the pandemic, since the pandemic. They've been working from home, they've been working from the office, they've been working in subpar conditions. So this is really about respecting the workers, keeping to the promises of being consultative, and just doing what they said that they would do, which is not the case here.
So how do you challenge this? Because as I know there is a position to push back on it. How do you do it if it is a management right, if you're not in a collective bargaining cycle? What's the mechanism you can use to challenge it?
Yeah, so we do have groups that are currently at the bargaining table. So, they will have options that are different. But there are various mechanisms, so policy grievances and labor practice complaints, both of which we're planning on moving forward with. We're also working with the other unions to see what it is that we can do kind of as a block to kind of demonstrate that this is not acceptable. The promises that they made to PIPs were made to other unions as well. So everyone feels very disrespected in the same way at this moment.
Is it, if they could sort out the space issue, because I take your point, if they're going to get rid of half of their buildings, and, it depends on where that is, where maybe it's not all in the National Capital Region or, with core government services. If they can sort out the space, is this a problem then? Or is it just that public servants want to continue to telework at the rate that they have been teleworking at since the pandemic?
Well, if this is done in an evidence-based manner, with the consultation that they have promised, with listening to the unions and the concerns of the people that they represent, there's probably a way to roll this out in a more acceptable fashion than what has been done.
What is the evidence you would need to see? I'm trying to understand that, because, we've gone through this with the CBC. Some people never worked from home, because they had to come in. The pandemic was big news. Other people work from home all the time, and they've not come back, and it's a struggle for every workplace to sort of recalibrate post-COVID, right? I totally get that. But what's the evidence you'd need to see to convince you that it's time for things to go back to the way they were?
So our reason for existing is providing service to Canadians. We've demonstrated that we have continued to do that through a pandemic, since the pandemic, through all of the changes that are occurring in the workplaces, divesting of those buildings, the hot desking issues. So why now? And why without the consultation we were promised? Right now, we can't see a reason why this change would be happening. We've asked these questions and we've not received answers. We've demanded an emergency meeting with Minister Anand. We have not received an answer on that yet. So these are all concerning to us.
I know the government points to what happened with CERB and the other aid programs as an example of how the civil service responded at a time of great crisis and got these programs up and running and out the door. But we've also seen in the years since challenges around passports and getting government documents and long wait lists and slow turnarounds. We're seeing challenges with proper oversight being executed, on outsourcing of contracts and different things. Are these not things that were affected in some way by people being from home rather than being together?
Well, the outsourcing is an interesting one to be bringing up, because PIPS has been a very loud advocate on that file, and that is an oversight, but it's an oversight from the government. It's a problem that we have seen occur more and more because of the decentralization and that lack of oversight. So it's not so much because of the location that people are working from. The oversight can continue to occur if people are working from home. If the delivery of services is happening at the same level of service that it was before, that is the kind of evidence that we would be looking for. We have just not seen that at all. We have asked the questions and we've not received any answers.
Just as a final point, you've heard Premier Doug Ford, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, people who own businesses and operate businesses in the downtown, transit infrastructure built up in the city of Ottawa for people, to come to work, a lot of them civil servants. They say they need the workers back because it's important to the way the economy and the city was structured. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, Ottawa and Gatineau, for that matter, are going through a period of change, right? And it is up to Mayor Sutcliffe to come up with a plan, and I trust that he can do that. But I don't think it's up to civil servants to need to return to the office to save the downtown core.
Okay, Stéphanie Montreuil, the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, thank you for your time, and please let us know if you do get that meeting with the minister.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for coming in.